So this is an example of grade 7, 4th quarter Earth and Space Science MELCs. So in the MELC, what we can get is the content standards, the performance standards, the learning competencies, sorry, hindi ko nilagay yung label, the learning competencies, the suggested weeks, number of weeks for discussion, and then their codes. So as you can see, if it is in the existing K-12 competency, nandito yung code. Kung wala, ibig sabihin it was the learning competency given has been either merged, recasted, or rephrased in such a way that it will be encompassing a lot more competencies from the previous one. Okay, so we have demonstrate how places on Earth may be located using a coordinate system. You may notice hindi na talaga in-specify na latitude, longitude, basta coordinate system na yung sinabi. Cite and explain ways of using Earth's resources sustainably. Okay, it's not just identifying kung ano sila, di ba? It has to also reach the part of how we can use them sustainably. So it's becoming much more encompassing. So that is the MELCs. Okay. So again, sabi, di ba, dun sa, ito, nasa first element pa lang po ako. Objectives has to be anchored on the MELCs. And then these MELCs are broad statements that should be unpacked into learning objectives. So, mukhang konti ang MELCs, pero pagdating sa module, medyo mukha siya ulit madami kasi nga, we have to unpack them. Since they are broad statements, sometimes they are not as measurable as we want them to be. That is why we have to unpack them into learning objectives that can be measured. And the idea is if these objectives are measured or has been attained by the students, it would have to follow that they have already attained that particular competency. Okay. So in translating, DepEd suggested that in translating the learning competency into a specific objective, it is best to look into the content and performance standards. So we have to anchor all of them. So hindi lang competency, we also have to look into the content standards here. Kasi diba, the learner should be able to exhibit understanding of the following. This is the content standards. And then they will be able to perform the following. So analyze the advantage of. So we have to anchor it here in both content and learning standards, and we unpack the learning competencies. Okay. So aside from it is being anchored on the MELCs, it has to inform the learners of the expected outcomes. Saan natin ito nakikita sa DepEd module? It is seen at the what I need to know part of the DepEd module. Wherein, in that particular section, it tells to the students that this will give the students an idea of the skills or competencies that they are expected to learn in the module. So, ayan. So those who said that letter A is teacher-centered and letter B is student-centered, that is correct. So how can you say that this is teacher-centered? Do you notice the one that is highlighted is all I? Okay. This is pertaining to you to us teachers. And notice the flow. I myself am guilty of this some point in my teaching career, that when I plan for my lessons, even before creating the modules, even before this pandemic or online classes, we are actually doing this. Yun mga nilalagay naman natin sa module. It's technically how we're teaching or how do we plan to teach the particular topic. It's just in a module form or written form. Ganun naman siya. So we plan things, right? We plan what we are going to teach. And at one point in my life, I really did plan it like this, in such a way na ang iisipin ko, ano yung content na ituturo ko? Diba? What do I know about this that is important in this field? Tapos, how can I organize all this content? How can I test what I taught? What did I teach them in this unit? And then what did I teach them in this class? So this is a teacher-centered course design. Or this, when you do things like this, when you plan for your lessons like this, you are exhibiting teacher-centeredness. Because you are prioritizing what you know and what you want to share to your students. Okay, na parang nahuhuli na, ano ba yung nakuha ng estudyante doon? Kasi di ba, we have these tendencies na, especially if we are content specialist, right? Kailan lang naman po tayo nag-produce ng mga, most of us teaching in DepEd are content specialist, na nandun tayo streamline kung bio, chem, physics, Gen Sci, okay? So, we know a lot of things about our content, that our tendency usually is to give them everything that we know, na parang kailangan mo to, kailangan mo to, kailangan mo to. So, it's more of the content, yung iniisip natin lagi, na parang dapat matutunan niya to kasi ganito, ganyan, ganyan. So, we are focusing on the content. When rather, we should be focusing on the student. Di ba sabi natin kanina, or sabi niyo kanina, a module has to be learner-centered. So is our teaching, right? Kung gusto niyo maging learner-centered si module, edi dapat tayo per se, we are practicing learner-centeredness. And we are able to practice learner-centeredness if we prioritize our students. Do you notice? Same set of process, but of different order. Wherein, it's the learning goal that is being identified first, before everything else. So we have to think at the very start, what will the students be able to do by the end of the course? If we're teaching in DepEd, then that's the competency, or that's the content standard. Okay? That now gives us, or the learning goal is our competency, since the MELCS has been what do you call this? It has become broader. Yes, you start with the end in mind. And you focus on your students per se. Okay, so what will the students be able to do by the end of the course? Sorry for the term courses kasi pang college yung pagkuhanan ko ng resource. Okay? And then, after you have that goal, usually kasi the learning goal is not required to be measurable. What is required to be measurable is the learning objective. Okay? Kasi dahil sa sobrang broad ni learning goal, hindi mo talaga siya madaling ma-measure. Example, my learning goal in a subject that I'm teaching right now is describes Earth's place in the universe. Diba? Although the verb that I am using is only describe, having that description or telling my students about Earth's place in the universe would need me to tackle about the universe, about the solar system, about the characteristics of Earth. So, it's not just a simple telling of siya yung third planet in the solar system. It's not that way. So, that is why, if that is my learning goal, it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3 nga, sabi nila. So, you do not easily measure your learning goal. But you'll have to unpack them, as stated earlier in the DepEd, that the competencies has to be unpacked into specific learning objectives that has to be measurable. Now, this learning objective really need to be measurable, because if you cannot measure your objectives, you will not be able to know if they are achieving your goals, right? So, kailangan ma-measure mo, nagawa nila yung objective mo para masabi mo na-attain nila yung goal mo. Or yung goal nila. This is a student-centered. So, it's the goal of the class. Not just a teacher, but also the students. So the learning objective now, what will students be able to do by the end of the lesson? Okay, so this is now the unpacked learning competencies. After which you do the assessments, or you identify what assessments will be. So how will we know if students are progressing? What do students need to practice to progress? And then last na yung content. Saka ka pala mag-iisip, ano ba yung dapat na ituturo doon sa objectives na yun, or ano ba yung content na masasagot doon sa aking objective. So what do students need from the instructor to progress? So this is student-centered. Okay? If we are able to practice this, if we are able to imbibe this in our teaching, then we really now can say that we are gearing towards student-centeredness. Kasi minsan, kahit sinasabi nating student-centered tayo, hindi naman tayo fully student-centered. Diba? I'm guilty of this few times. Diba? Siyempre, if we're dealing with content, again, gusto mo may turo lahat. But it's really not the same with the students. Kasi nga, may tinatawag din tayong information overload. So let's reach to become a student-centered or to have a student-centered class.